Hey guys, what is up and welcome to a new League of Legends video. So I'm sure most of you are aware that there have been new changes done to Black Cleaver. And with that being said, the point of this video is of course to go over the new Black Cleaver, talk about the pros, the cons, comparing it with the old one, quickly touching on who it's probably going to be very effective on and the vice versa. And to finish it off at the end of the video, we'll also talk about the Blade of the Rune King changes. Though not as heavy, they're still worth mentioning. I will quickly mention that yeah, I think the new Black Cleaver is very strong. But let us actually take a look at it. So I mean, more or less, it is still the same kind of item as the old Black Cleaver. Its purpose is still the same, however now it focuses on that purpose even more. Especially if you take into account the current meta, a whole bunch of tanks walking around with 200 or 300 armor. The biggest difference is the fact that 1, it no longer has the flat 10 armor penetration, and 2, it has a completely new passive called Rage, where it incorporates the passive of Phage, where it gives you extra move speed whenever you auto attack a target, and kind of a new one where it's almost like a mini version of Jinx's passive. So if you ever get a kill on a target or you get an assist on a target that had a stack of your Black Cleaver on them, you get a very small burst of move speed. So those are the major differences, but let's go into the more specific differences while also comparing it with its previous iteration. So the first thing I do want to mention is the fact that this Black Cleaver still costs you 3,000 gold, which is the exact same as the previous Black Cleaver. So that's not really a good thing, nor is it a bad thing. But the things you can instantly notice is the fact that the new Black Cleaver gives you 200 more HP, 10 less AD, 10% more cooldown reduction, like I said, no more flat armor pen. The 5% stacking armor reduction is still the same, however now it stacks 6 times, up to 30% for 6 seconds, as opposed to the previous iterations 5 stacks up to 25%, while also only lasting for 4 seconds. So right off the bat I instantly think, yeah, this is a much better finished item than the previous iteration. This doesn't necessarily mean that the item as a whole is better, or at least I don't think it's better, but the actual finished portion of the item, once you get all the recipes, you get all the components, is much better. Specifically talking about the fact that Brutalizer is no longer a component to building this item, which kinda sucks. So we've always had Last Whisper whenever it comes to armor penetration and trying to go through a tank. But it simply was not enough, and that being really the only % armor penetration item in the game really just kinda fell short. So now that this Black Cleaver has 5% more armor reduction but they removed the flat armor pen, makes a lot of sense. I mean, once someone has more than 200 armor, the 10 armor penetration is not going to really do you a whole lot. And prior to this change, I mean, you would rarely see anyone rush Black Cleaver, for instance being their first, second, or maybe even third item. So by the time you would normally get Black Cleaver, that 10 flat armor pen that you get is quite trivial. So that's the change I really like, on top of also giving you 20% CDR from 10. One thing I'm noticing in League of Legends is that cooldown reduction is more and more important, because every single split second in a team fight matters, and removing that part and being able to use your abilities that much more frequently within a team fight can really mean the difference between winning and losing. So personally, I'm a huge fan of this 20% CDR. The extra tankiness that it offers is also great, because remember, even though this item is great on many champions, its main purpose or its main target of champions are ones that are going to be somewhat tanky but also dealing somewhat good damage. So more or less bruiser type champions, which I will mention shortly. But the thing that I like about it is that it even works on assassin type champions, so like Zed or Talon, because by the time you build it as your 3rd or 4th item, the extra tankiness definitely helps you out, because by that point you usually have enough damage from your other items that you already have finished, so that the extra tankiness from this and the sweet armor shred that you get from this item is just a nice mix of the two, and it works very well mid to late game. The cons of this item is that I really do think that the build path to it is quite horrendous. I mean, overall it just feels a little awkward. So yeah, the build path is not so great, but the finished item is like a whole different story. And one thing I've been noticing, or I guess not really noticing, is the fact that the mini Jinx passive, where you get the extra move speed on a kill or assist, is somewhat trivial, and I personally don't really feel it. I mean, overall, yeah, I think this new Black Cleaver item is much better than the old one, especially when you take into account the current tank meta, and just how much more assistance we really did need to get right through their armor and just resistances in general. But let's talk about what champions this item is good on and not so good on. So I still think that the champions that will benefit the most out of this item are the tanky bruisers such as Darius, Garen, Rek'Sai, Wukong, and maybe even Yorick, because I heard that his ghouls are able to proc the passive of Black Cleaver. So like I said before, AD bruiser type champions that go a mix of damage and tankiness rather than just one path. But let's talk about the champions that are more related to what I personally play and what I'm assuming most of you play since you watch my videos. The mid lane AD assassins, so like Zed, Talon, and even probably Kha'Zix eventually. I didn't mention Yasuo because I don't think it's going to be very good on him because the 20% CDR is a very wasted stat. But regardless, I do think champions like Zed or Talon will benefit off of this item quite heavily. Not only can both of them stack it up quite quickly, but both of them tend to build very similar items. So using Zed as an example because he's the one I've tested on the most, you get Blade of the Rune King, you're going to be getting a Yomus, you're going to be getting a Black Cleaver, and you're going to be getting a Last Whisper. That's 3 armor pen items, all of them working very well together, going through even the tankiest of champions. But at the same time, even though you deal a lot of damage, you have a lot of armor shred, whether it's a tanky person or even a squishy person, you also get a nice mix of HP thanks to the Black Cleaver, so you're not very squishy either. And overall, it just works. I highly recommend getting the Black Cleaver item as minimum the 3rd item, or the 4th, 5th, or even 6th. So I think it's a pretty good item on AD assassins as well, but I don't think it'll be very good on ADC or marksman type champions. So for those of you that have asked me so many times, is this item good? Is it good on Zed? Yeah, I think it's pretty darn good. However, before I end off this video, let's talk about the Blade of the Rune King as well. So the items that you have to get for Blade of the Rune King have been changed, and they added a recurve bow, which I think is an amazing addition, especially considering the new unique passive deals 10 physical damage on hit on the recurve bow. For people that really do follow me, they know that I absolutely hate the build path of Blade of the Rune King, because the part between getting the Cutlass and finishing off the actual Blade of the Rune King is absolutely atrocious. The 2 daggers didn't really do anything for you, and you had to wait another 900 gold before you finish it. Absolutely atrocious. So now you can actually have another item finished before you get the Blade of the Rune King, and the recurve bow really isn't all that bad with the new addition to its passive. Oh yeah, and the Borg on hit passive finally benefits from lifesteal, not sure why it never did before. So of course nothing major happened to Blade of the Rune King in terms of changes, however the build path, which I think was the biggest setback of the item overall, finally got changed, and Riot finally listened to someone or something. So that part I am extremely happy about, and I'm really glad they made the change. But that is it for this video, guys. Those are my thoughts on the new Black Cleaver. Once again, I'll mention them in a very quick summary. I think it's a darn good item. I think the build path is horrible. It's extremely good on AD bruisers, and it's pretty good on AD assassins, and probably not so good on ADCs. And it's a very welcome change to this very annoying tank meta. I also recommend getting it as minimum your 3rd item, if not more. And the build path for Blade of the Rune King is much better. So that is it, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned something new. If you did, please throw in a like, share it with your friends, and I hope to see you guys for the next video. And I recommend checking out the previous videos as well. Peace.